welcome to Binge Buddies, Reggie's 4-barrel ice cream with me, your host, always Bryan Dressel, with me, Matt Dykes and Joel DeWitte.
Yo.
I guess I could give you Matt Zombie Dog Dykes. It feels weird just saying Matt Dykes. Like, I feel like I'm skipping part of your name now.
Yeah, it genuinely, like, when you said that, I was like, that feels wrong.
I think I've made this same comment in, like, every wrap-up since we started Zombie Dog.
I've made the same comment as well. Like, one of us made that comment. Because it just feels weird you saying just Matt Dykes now. It's like, oh, I feel like when you said it, I had this sort of, like, sinking feeling like I've done something wrong.
Yeah. Oh, he must be upset with me.
It's like, oh, shit, what have I
done? So we did it. If you listened last week, we finished the final film of Phantasm 5 Ravager. And here we are to wrap up. We're going to kind of do things both a little similar and a little different how we've done other wrap-ups. I want to kind of spend the first half of the episode kind of talking about like the Phantasm that could have been. There's a lot of scripts out there that didn't get made. And kind of talk about just like our general feelings and kind of how they evolved over the rewatch or first-time watch for Joel. So I'm going to go first with just kind of that, and then we'll kind of move into the Phantasms that could have been. So really quickly, I think I mentioned the first episode, but maybe I didn't. I watched these all for the first time about 3 years ago when my son was born, and I watched them while taking care of him as a stay-at-home dad. Like, it was just something to leave on, and I really, really enjoyed them. I've watched them a whole bunch of times since, but I never really fully dove into them again. I mostly just kind of left them in the background or tried to show Chewie them, who has completely bailed on the franchise by now. But I never really kind of gave it the full, like, weight of, like, I'm going to sit down and actually, like, pay attention again. And throughout this rewatch, I'm really glad I did that, because I both have way more respect for the franchise and way less at the same time. Like, it wears its rough edges proudly, and because of that, it's just like, wow, good for you guys. You should have smoothed out those edges, but also awesome. So, like, I think I'm a bigger fan at the end of it than I was going in, which is, I guess, the goal of these things. So that's kind of where I'm at now. What about you, Joel?
Coming in with no expectations other than seeing the first trailer, there's a very distinct style of, when was the first movie came out? It was like the 70s?
79.
It is very, that first movie is very much of its time, sort of the grainy film, the very almost bizarre, and the music that is less meant to be like bone chilling and more mysterious. Overall, it's been this really cool journey, that they developed this world between Phantasm 1 and 2, and then they used that world and set of characters to really go different places after that. Weirdly enough, there is a good parallel between this and the Resident Evil movies.
There really is.
Yeah, it's surprising how much of a through line there is similarly, where you have this baseline of what you expect from the world. They use that to twist you into knots and then try new things, to greater or worse effect. But at the end of the day, it's a memorable experience, and it's one of those things where, like, Kelly will groan, but I could very well see myself putting this on the TV again and watching.
Oh, absolutely. There is something, just to throw it out there, I could easily see Phantasm and then the Milla Jovovich Resident Evil franchise existing in the same world.
Yeah, like, I can picture Reggie on a motorcycle crashing through a church and then, like, skidding to her side in front of the tall man.
I could just see Reggie attempting to hit on Alice and, like, just
getting
going
his nose broken
horribly. Because I could also see him getting rejected by Alice and then going like, "Hey, Claire."
Hey, Kmart.
Oh, Kmart. How did I forget that name? Fucking Kmart, man. That's a character I haven't thought about in a while.
Oh, stupid.
All right, but
character.
Matt, what about you? How are you before to where you are now?
So I think I don't know exactly what age I was, but I was definitely sort of like late teens when I first saw these films. I saw, like, I think I've told this before, but I saw like part of the second one. Basically, I missed the beginning and I missed the very end of the second one because the recording cut off. and I started recording it too late of the second one. And then I enjoyed what I saw. So I got the DVD set, which had just come out, and it was the special edition that was like a ball that had all the discs in it. It was really cool. I wish I still had it, to be honest, because it's worth a lot of money. And then I watched like all 4 of them basically in one day, because you can do that.
I mean, they're short. Yeah, you could.
They're about 90 minutes apiece. On average, anyway. And so I just rewatched that, and then I watched the documentary that was on the DVD. I watched the DVDs with the audio commentaries. I loved these films so much, and I just kept, every so often I'd rewatch them. I'd watch 1 and 2 more than 3 and 4. If I was just gonna watch one of them or 2 of them, it'd be usually one and 2 that I'd watch. But as I got the Blu-ray set, I've watched them, and I've always really enjoyed them. And I remember with the 5th one thinking, this is not a bad ending, but I'd never really rewatched that until this watch through, and it just kind of, the series as a whole I think works so well, because each film feels like it's a part of the same series. It does something really different. Each one goes off in one different direction. The first one it's kind of more of a mystery. The second one is almost like an action thing. We're going to hunt down the tall man and get him. The third one's got really comedic with the Home Alone elements and things like that. And then the fourth one goes back to that sort of mysterious but also quite creepy as well. And then the 5th one just kind of meshes a lot of it together to sort of to bring it all full circle in a weird way.
As you're breaking these down, it makes me think, when I did my first watch of these things forever, 3 years ago, I had very distinct, I like that one. Oh, I kind of like that one, but there's problems. Oh, I didn't like that one. Oh, I loved that one. And on this rewatch, they all kind of evened out. We'll rank these at the end of the episode. We'll get there, but I don't really have, beyond my number 1 being my number 1, the rest of them, I could kind of turn them on and off at will. There's so much of them that I love, and there's about the same amount that I don't like in each one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I really feel I think that's my biggest takeaway from this rewatch. And as you're kind of breaking it down, it just kind of clicked. I'm I think I just like them all a lot more now than I thought I did.
Yeah. I think part of it is with age, and and learning about how they made them as well. For me, it's a big, if say for example the first Phantasm film had been a $10 million film, I don't think I'd have enjoyed it anywhere near as much. But knowing that it was this really low budget, really sort of fly by the seat of your pants, we're going to learn how to make a film whilst making a film kind of approach, I really appreciate it a lot more because of that. Because of what they were able to do with such a little amount of money. And that's the sort of the through line throughout all these films. They all had minuscule budgets. The first one had a minuscule budget for an independent film. It's something like 300,000-ish. The second one had a minuscule budget for a big feature. It was the lowest budget film that any studio commissioned the year that it was made, $2 million. And then, then the budget got lower for the sequel. It should have gone higher, but it didn't. And then, and I think 4 was about 600,000, and then 5, we don't know how much, but I've heard things that it was the lowest budget of the lot of them, including the first one, which
Oof.
It's just, to me, that's incredible.
They pulled it off.
But all of them, though, the fact that all these films were made for such a small amount of money, but they look incredible. They don't feel cheap, really. The 5th one has moments where it feels cheap with the CGI. But, 1 to 4, none of them feel cheap at all. They feel very well made. They feel like they were crafted by these people who had a lot of time to do them, which is it's a testament to Don Coscarelli, because he didn't have a lot of time in some respects.
We mentioned it when we did the episode on Part 4, but I still feel the same way. Part 4 was probably the best shot direct-to-video movie ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's a gorgeous movie. They shot it incredibly well. I mean, the scenes that they actually shot, they didn't use recaps for or old footage for, but the shot incredibly well. Like, it's a very well made movie for a direct to video. I mean,
yeah, he like Coscarelli wanted that in the cinemas, and they did actually do a premiere cinema release. One of the anniversaries, I think, they showed all 4 films over like a weekend or something. But yeah, he went into that as like, you know, I'm going to shoot this exactly the same as I would do any film that's definitely going to the cinema because I want this in the cinema.
and it shows.
Yeah.
But before we kind of go far too down the road of just talking about 4 and how awesome 4 is, let's talk about what 4 could have been. Like, this kind of talk of budgets and stuff kind of brings me into that topic we mentioned at the top of this of there was a Phantasm movie that was going to be very different than 4, and we're going to talk about it when we recorded the episode on 4, but it just kind of felt more like a wrap up sort of thing. Since let's just talk about like what could have been. And I believe the name of that one was it just called Phantasm's End?
So it's had several titles throughout the years. One of the titles, it was like Phantasm's End was one of them. Phantasm 1999 was one of them. And then after 1999
did they get Prince to do the song for that one?
Well, after 1999 came and went, they changed it to Phantasm 2013.
Oh boy.
Really random. Yeah, it had different titles at various stages, but I think the one that it kept sort of like coming round on was this sort of like Phantasm's End, because the idea of it was this big sort of like bombastic end-all Phantasm film that was going to end the whole thing. You know, it was going to be, they were going to go to the Tall Man's Planet. It was going to be epic in scope.
Which we've now seen parts of, because they used chunks of that in 5. They actually used chunks of Phantasm End in Phantasm Oblivion.
That was
there was little bits of it. So like the boob balls sequence in the Phantasm's End script, it was like this,
I mean, when
like
you've struck gold, man, you've struck gold. Don't let that go.
No, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, in Phantasm's End, I believe it was like a prostitute or something, and the ball sort of like shot out of her. Like, you know, like shot out of her and then like balled like a load of people, because there's this idea that Reggie had this team of people that were sort of going into oh god, I can't remember what they called it in the script. That's annoying. But basically, like, the Tall Man had conquered America. There was like 2 areas where I think he'd conquered the whole world actually.
He'd conquered the whole world.
And then there was 2 areas in America. There was like, you know, one at one side and one at the other side that were still sort of like, you know, there was people still living there, and then everything in between was this sort of basically like God, I can't remember what it was called, which will annoy me. But in there was like, you know, there was all these different sort of like gizmos. So like, you know, it wasn't just the balls. There was all these other different kinds of balls that were there. There will have been like gravers and these sort of like zombie type creatures that were going to like all sorts of different things. And they had this sort of, they basically were going into that zone to rescue Mike. And you know, it was going to be Reggie and this team of sort of like commandos. One of them was going to be played by Bruce Campbell. And they had this sort of, well, the Mad Max style CUDA that you see in Phantasm 5, that's basically lifted out of that script as well. They had this sort of like Mad Max-esque, I think it was going to be like a convoy of things with like being led by the CUDA.
It was one of those, like, have you seen Land of the Dead, the George A. Romero like 2000 sequel to Dawn of the Dead?
A long time ago, yeah.
Like when I read the pitch for Phantasm's End, is what I'm going to refer to it as, it really felt like that movie to me. Like, it felt like this sort of like this aging guy who doesn't want to let go of his franchise because it's his franchise and he's got the right idea. Maybe the idea is just the bad guys won and we're just kind of stuck, you know, like as like ants on a, you know, fucking giant just trying to make our own lives work. And that's kind of what I got the feeling from like the Land of the Dead, which is not a very good movie, but it's fine. And then kind of the pitch for this one, it just kind of felt like, oh, he won. And it's that same sort of element that we got at the end of Ravager, where he's like, oh, it just feels, Reggie's talking to Mike. He's like, oh, it just feels good to be home. And Mike's like, well, it's not really our home anymore. It's his. And he opens the door and it's just the fucking apocalypse. And it's just, the world is over. And that was sort of the vibe I got off of the pitch from Phantasm's End. Was it was just going to be 100% that? Was like, oh, no, he's just one. And we just need to try to make work what we can because the war is over. And we're very much on the lost side.
Yeah. Yeah, that was basically it. The tall man won. And there's not really a lot that you can find out about it. Really, there's little bits and pieces here and there, like that Don Coscarelli's talked about in interviews and things like that. But essentially, the tall man had won and conquered thing. They went off into this area to try and rescue Mike. They ended up actually going onto his planet as well, which is another element which ended up in Ravager.
Yep.
And just the thing that it came down to was they needed to make the script. I think they were looking for $20 million, and every studio basically said, "Nah, it's too much money."
I really feel like Phantasm missed out. Like they started like a decade too early. Like I feel like if they could have made it to like the streaming boom, somebody would have given them a movie.
Yeah.
Like it probably wouldn't have been Netflix, but like maybe like Shudder. Like Shudder might have picked them up, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like a
actually.
legit budget. They just didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't get there. It's all happened too soon. I mean, Angus Scrimm wasn't even alive by the time that stuff was really kicking off. So it's kind of a bummer. But
I mean, I just recently watched Hansel and Gretel Dip Bait. If that movie can exist, then a Phantasm movie can exist in the modern day.
I'm not going to ask you a single question to that, and I'm just going to assume that it's the sequel to the Hansel and Gretel with Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton, and it's just them getting high and talking about making that movie. I know that's not what it is, but I'm going to assume that's what it is because that sounds way better to me.
I don't know if that'd probably be a higher quality film, but I don't know that I'd want to watch that one.
I would totally watch Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton, just two beautiful people getting wickedly stoned and talking about making a movie that they both know is shit. I could watch that for like 5 hours.
So I don't want to thank Peacock for having that movie available, for recommending it after Phantasm Ravager. Because
if you liked this, then fuck you. You'll probably like this.
If you like this, then you're high. What's this?
Oh my god. Is that how you also ended up watching Lamageddon?
no, that was just a perusing Amazon Prime and being like, let's watch a horror movie. Okay, this looks stupid. Let's watch this instead.
I recently, looking through the text between us, I got to that picture of the llama with the dead eyes behind the people in a hot tub in like a bedroom.
Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? Oh yeah, Lamageddon.
Oh dear.
All right, is there anything else that we should talk about for the Phantasm movies that could have been? Is there anything?
There was another one as well that was going to be called Phantasm Forever, which was
that's the one, yeah.
Which was before Ravager. There's not a lot of information about that one that's out there, but they did actually do a full read through with everyone. There was a few of them that didn't happen, actually, to be honest. There was one that I heard about which sounded absolutely batshit crazy. For a Phantasm film, this is batshit crazy. It basically would have brought back James LeGros' Mike and A. Michael Baldwin's Mike, and they were going to fight each other at one point over who was the better Mike. They would have a legit, almost like a Street Fighter-style brawl.
Now, was it going to be based on acting talent or character quality? Because then we have two clearly different winners.
I don't know. It was going to be this sort of weird thing that, the James LeGros Mike was actually, it was a separate thing that happened, and I don't know. It sounded absolutely batshit. James LeGros was interested for 30 seconds, then he wasn't interested, and yeah, it's very weird.
What an odd idea. I mean,
yeah.
Again, just too early. If that idea hit now, with how obsessed we are with multiverses, my God.
Oh yeah. And
they would have made that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, the other one that I heard about, and I was actually surprised that I heard about that this one was potentially going to happen. So there was actually a remake that was going to be made. It was going to be made at New Line Cinema. Don Coscarelli was involved, but it wasn't actually a remake. Reggie, Michael, I think it was just Reggie and Michael, were going to be in this remake as themselves, and the remake was basically going to be this first one sort of retold, but as if it's happening again.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Is that the Abrams one, I assume? Because Abrams,
Yes.
is really
Yeah,
good
yeah,
at
yeah,
making
yeah.
things. Yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was the Abrams one. You're right.
Oh, you mean
It was-
Abrams was going to make a movie where it was the original again, but also not again, like he
Yeah.
did with Star Trek and like he did with Star Wars?
Yeah.
My God, that guy goes to the same well all the fucking time.
But to be honest, it sounded quite cool because you were gonna have, like, you know, from what I could tell, there wasn't a lot of information about it from what I'd heard. It sounded like Angus Scrimm was going to be the tall man again as well. So, you know, when we're talking about how, you know, now that Angus has died, he's never had to watch anyone else play that role. If the remake had have gone ahead, he still wouldn't have to have seen anyone else play the role because it would have been him that had
I mean, at
done
least
it.
Abrams knew that much.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was all sorts of other ones. There was like there was a comic series that was like it was on like was it Machina, the site?
Oh, it was like a web series, like a webcomic sort of thing.
Yeah, there was like a webcomic that, like, you know, they got 3 issues made and then for some unknown reason it just stopped.
Yeah, if you search Phantasm comic, you usually get something with Batman because, you know, Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just crazy. Like, you know, all these different things that were coming about. Like, you know, the one that was like, you know, the most sort of like refined idea was Phantasm's End, and then you had Phantasm Forever as well, where they did the full read through.
Well, it just
And
kind
there
of
was the web
shows
series as well that never happened. Like, you know, they
that kind of
did.
turned into the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, they did the pilot episode, and then they used footage from that for the 5th film as well.
But what I was gonna say is it just kind of shows that, like, no matter how popular Phantasm is, like, most people are aware of Phantasm, if not just the first movie, but it never really fully cracked mainstream. Like, it never totally got there. Like, it had its moments. It had like parody videos. Like, it had some stuff here and there, but it just never fully broke through. And for better or worse, like, maybe if it had, it would have gotten watered down or, like, you know, changed or somehow. And maybe by sticking to its roots, we were able to get the Phantasm we all now enjoy. But it is kind of interesting that for some reason this one just couldn't do it. Like, even Hellraiser, I think, had more breakthrough than this one did.
Oh, definitely.
I was definitely more familiar with that character, at least, than
With Pinhead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's also
everyone
much more
knows
like-
Pinhead.
But Pinhead also he's just more engaging to look at. Like, Tall Man, if you don't know the Phantasm series, he literally is just a tall guy wearing kind of like a somewhat ill-fitting suit. Like, it doesn't really scream terror at you. Whereas Pinhead, you just take one look at him, it's like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy.
I think that might be the core problem of this. Like, you know, if you look at all the big sort of horror icons that you think of, you know, not excluding things like Dracula and Frankenstein. I mean, like the sort of like the 70s, 80s horror icons.
You mean your Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers?
Yeah, Jason
Leatherface.
Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Pinhead, you know, Leatherface. All of those ones, they've got something horrific about them or distinctive. Like Jason with the hockey mask is kind of creepy to look at. Michael Myers with that William Shatner mask is really creepy to look at because it's just like this expressionless face. Freddy Krueger is kind of horrific to look at because it's like burnt. Pinhead is scary to look at because of all the pins. Tall Man is just a man in a suit. Now, like, you see a picture of Pinhead, you go, oh, fucking hell, who's that? You see a picture of the Tall Man, you just think it's a guy.
Yeah,
But
totally.
it's like, you know, you don't get what the Tall Man actually is from just sort of seeing him. Even though it's like, you know, like when you look at the picture of him doing the sort of like, you know, the one eye slightly closed, the scowl, you know, it is kind of like, you know, a scary kind of look, but it's still just a guy.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get that contextualization of what the Tall Man actually is just from looking at him. And I think,
I'd actually
you know,
argue you wouldn't even get it if you only watched the first movie. Like, you'd still think he's just kind of a lackluster horror villain because he doesn't really, as good as he is in that with like his all of, I think, maybe 10 lines in the first movie, and he's great. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't really shine through as that character until like 3 and 4.
Yeah, you took my point. Like, it is through watching this whole series that you get sort of the total encapsulation of what the Tall Man is and what he means for the world of Phantasm. I mean, if it was one and done, it very much would have been like, okay, creepy looking man, and silver balls that bore into your face. Like
Yep.
that, that'd be what it is.
Well, that's the thing with the thing that everyone sort of like knows from Phantasm. It's the balls, and I think I mentioned this in the first Phantasm when we did. Like all these other characters that I mentioned, they're known for themselves. Like their films are known for their character, whereas Phantasm is more known for this tool that the Tall Man uses.
Which is kind of funny because that's like the hook that might bring you in, but it's also the thing that gets more tired as they use it. Whereas the intrigue of the Tall Man is really, really what's compelling about the next movies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think there's a fair argument to be made that the balls kind of max out if you watch the director's cut, I think, of 2. I think by the end of 2, it's like, all right, this is what the balls can do. And then we still have them in 3, 4, and 5. And they still work, don't get me wrong, but it's like the creativity of what they can do with them kind of ends like right out of the gate.
Yeah, I would say like the ball sequence in 3, barrel roll not excluding. It doesn't do anything new, and it doesn't. It just sort of feels like they're just redoing that same scene, from the first one actually, because it's in a mausoleum.
Yeah, it's just
well.
The difference is it's a girl this time.
Yeah, and the ball does a nice barrel roll, which does look quite cool, and
It does.
the fact that it's a practical effect and they had like to build this entire rig to hold this giant mirror ball basically, it's very cool that they managed to do that. But like 2 added, the fact that it starts toying with the priest. It rips his ear off first, and then it drills into his head, and then you've got the gold sphere in 2 as well, which burrows into the back of the guy. Whereas 3 just kind of just did a standard ball in like was in the first one that we saw.
Yeah. So
I mean, they got that sort of playfulness back a little bit. I think in Ravager, like you've got in the back of the head, you've got the horse, you've got the guy in the neck.
Do you say sense of fun and then mention the horse?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I mean, like, sense of fun of like, let's just think a bit different with this one. Like, what have we not done?
Yeah, no, do you want to keep backpedaling or do you want to change
Yeah,
topics?
tons of fun. Reggie ran over a dog on the way to the Tall Man,
That's what I think of. Fun. All right, I think we should get into our rankings.
Well, there's one thing I do want to say before we get into the rankings.
We're at 32 minutes. Say it quickly.
Okay. So, with Ravager, Angus was actually... because Angus passed away before the film actually came out. But he was actually able to see the film before he passed away. And because it wasn't directed by Don Coscarelli, it was directed by another guy called David Hartman, who was like, he worked very closely with Don. They arranged a screening room for it. Angus was not very well at the time. So David picked him up and basically said, who's taking me home? And David basically said, if you like the film, I'm taking you home. If you hate the film, Don's taking you home. So, they went to the screening and there was literally Angus, David Hartman, Don Coscarelli, Reggie Bannister, and Reggie's wife in this screening room. They watched the film, and David Hartman walked up really sort of sheepishly to him and said, "So what did you think?" And Angus just turned to him and said, "You're taking me home."
Aww.
And it's just that's what I love about all the stories about Angus Scrimm. It's the way he sort of like presented stuff, and David Hartman was talking about how, on the way back, they had this really nice long conversation about mortality and things like that, and the meaning of sort of existence and really nice, deep sort of stuff. And yeah, I think it's one of my sort of favorite behind the scenes stories about Angus. Is that it just shows how much of a genuinely nice person he was. He was so lovely, and it's just so strange to think that this guy who was literally the nicest guy in films, from the sounds of it, could play this ultimately evil horror character.
And he does it so well.
Yeah.
So well.
It's like you look at him, you think the way he portrays that, he's got to be, he must have murdered someone or something like that. And, we're gonna find out all these secrets when he's died. That he's like, he's got like a graveyard in his back garden of all his murder victims. But no, he was just a legitimately lovely guy.
No, I'm glad you actually got that story out because I didn't know that one, and it's very sweet. But no, we're gonna leave the sweetness behind, and we're gonna be a lot more. I'm gonna go with goofy because I feel like that's how those lists are gonna go. Let's start ranking this thing now. The rankings this time, we always rank the movies. We always rank our like lines and quotes because that's always really fun. It's a horror franchise. We're gonna rank the deaths, and like that just didn't feel like enough to rank. And I kind of threw it out to the group of like I'm trying to think of something else. And Joel brought up what I think is possibly the best option of ranking Reggie's ladies. Because every movie he tries to hit on someone, and and it all goes spectacularly terrible. So I just couldn't think of a better list to include than that as well. And you can rank it however you want, however you think they should be ranked. That's great to you. I'm gonna go first for how I interpreted this list, and you guys can jump in after me. So we're starting with Reggie's ladies. And I'm starting with number 5 from part 4, which is Jennifer. Because Jennifer is just, she's a lunatic. I don't understand her at all. She stands in a closet with like a clear plastic thing getting changed while constantly talking to Reggie about how insane he is, and then climbs into bed with like one button keeping her shirt closed and just her underwear. Like, she's just a crazy person. And then she gets boob balled. So, she's pretty far down my list.
That motel she's in as well.
Horrifying. Just horrifying.
It's like literally the place that a serial killer goes to dump their bodies, not even kill them.
And she's just sort of fine with it. Like,
yeah,
whatever. So she's my least favorite. And then number 4 is the Dawn/Jade from part 5. I think she's fine, but she really just kind of feels there to tick a box of like, oh, Reggie needs a lady in this one. Check. So then the next 2 were really tough for me to decide one or the other. And number 3, I went with Alchemy from Phantasm 2, just because I liked the switch at the end, but otherwise I couldn't really remember much about her other than Reggie had his pants on sex with her, so I'm still thinking Reggie's a virgin. Number 2, I could have sworn was going to be my number 1, but I'll save my number 1. Number 2 is Rocky from part 3, because Rocky was great, and she's a badass, and she legit turns down Reggie and handcuffs him to a bed, and she's just fucking awesome. But for my number 1... if you're trying to remember, like, what other woman could there be, I had to go for the only woman that ever properly penetrated Reggie, and I'm going for the Lady in Lavender.
I was thinking to myself, I was there going, who else is there? And I kept thinking Lady in Lavender. It's like, well, Reggie doesn't really try anything with her. He just gets stabbed by her.
He gets good and penetrated. So I'm still counting her. Because if it wasn't for the part 5 where she comes back and he's like, it's you. I'm like, it's like an X. I'm counting her. So that's mine. I'm saving Joel for last because this was his idea. So Matt, you're up.
Our lists are practically identical. I just didn't include the... Oh, our lists are identical. I just didn't include the Lady in Lavender. Like, literally, I got
funny.
4, Jennifer, because, she's literally just there to be someone that Reggie can talk to, and she is quite possibly the stupidest person in the world. Like, she rolls her car trying to avoid hitting a tortoise.
She is such
the fuck.
I feel bad for the act.
Like,
I'm sure she did the best she could with that script, but her character.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the character here. The character is just a moron because, like, not only does Reggie takes her to this motel which looks like a condemned building on the outside. On the inside, it's like a freaking crack den or something. And he's just like, yeah, we can sleep. He's like, oh yeah, we got. We've got room service. Hi. It's like, he picks up half a phone. He's like, yeah, room service. And she's like, yeah, okay. Well, I'm like, how have you survived? How have you not been murdered?
Did Reggie throw her?
Yeah, it's like, literally like, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Like, there are no green flags.
No.
just red.
And then she dies because of course that's what happens.
Yeah, and then it's like the only thing that makes sense is like she is literally a tall man's minion who is that, you know, or like the tall man in disguise or something like that, where I just think that inside her head she's just thinking, fucking hell, this guy is insane. Like, you know, why would anyone go with this lunatic? But I have to. You know, it's like, yeah, it's just crazy. Number 3 is Dawn/Jane. Again, there's not really a lot to the character. Yeah, he writes her a song. Can't remember her name. She gets bald, and then she comes back, and then gets her neck snapped. So there's not really much to her.
Yeah, she's a box tick for sure.
Yeah. Number 2's Cammy, because yeah, she, of all the women, she's definitely the one that's got the most sort of like sinister element to her. Like, you know, as soon as you see her on the screen, you think to yourself, there's something not right about this character. There's something a bit, I don't know, like you can't put your finger on it. It's like, you know, am I just reading too much into this? And then it turns out, no, you're not, because it's the tall man in disguise. And then number 1, Rocky.
Yeah.
Like, how could you not have Rocky?
Well, if you count the Lady in Lavender, that's how.
Well, yeah, but you know, I didn't count the Lady in Lavender because, like, you know, Reggie never tried to shag the Lady in Lavender.
But he would have.
Probably
He would have.
Maybe that's what he was doing when he ran up to her and she was laid down.
I would bet good money. I'm sure he rolled over. Was like, "Oh, she's attractive. This is pretty crazy." But
I feel like,
Hey, baby.
oh, she's stabbing me.
I feel like that could have been taste for any woman in this movie. Like, if it was the tall woman, he would have a second thought about it for a minute.
Oh, you're very right. Joel, what about you?
All right, so you guys have covered a lot of the reasons why, and I think we're in sort of a similar pattern here. But 5 is the Lady in Lavender, because I didn't even really think of her as a Lady of Reggie. I didn't think about it until Brian brought it up this morning. 2 is Jennifer. I just found her underwhelming, and to you guys, she was a plot device just to, you know, move Reggie towards the actual action. 3 was Dawn, and I found her pretty pleasant and more interesting than you both did, I think. Just because she was an island of her own in terms of these characters, and that, like, she was actually sort of sweet and nice and unassuming and, you know, seemingly nice piece of the pie until she gets just brutalized. 2 is Alchemy, and I think it's because she is the most consistent, or at least traditional horror movie kind of character that, you know, to Matt's point, you can tell something's a little off with her.
Yep.
And it, you know, they let it breathe for a little bit long enough to where you're just like, are they going to pull the trigger or not? Are they trying to maybe take her as sort of like a turn where she actually is legitimately a part of the team? And then at the end, nope. Like she's just a full-on terror. And then 1's Rocky. Like, and it is because she is a fun character, and she stands out from all the other ones in that she is like pure badass and gives it to Reggie in a way none of the other ones can. And she's just the most memorable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we with the exception of Lady in Lavender, we all totally agreed.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't think that's ever happened.
No, we've never agreed like that, ever.
Wow.
Maybe that made it a bad list.
I was still fun trying to come up with it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into, we're going to do deaths, lines, and then movies. So we're going to move on to deaths, and we're just going to keep the same order going just for a little while. So my death ranking, originally this list was going to be like rank the ballings, but then as I rewatched 5, I'm like, ooh, there's just way too many ballings in this that are all like, okay, so all the ballings from 5 will be the end of the list, and then moving on. Like, it just didn't feel right. So I'm just going with top 5 deaths. So with that, my number 5 is a tie between a joke answer and a real answer, and I couldn't decide between 2 of them, so I'm just leaving them both. My joke answer is Mike's girlfriend from part 2 in the beginning of part 3, like just faceless, murdered and eaten off screen, just like we're fucking done with that character. Like, just killed me. But my legit answer would be actually Reggie in part 5, Ravager, when he finally does die with the either take it how you will, or like the ghost of Mike and Jody next to him, or the real versions, whatever you want to think about it. But him dying with his friends and then being reborn in the world with them, I think that was just unbelievably well done for such a silly, goofy, directed streaming movie. Number 4 is the what I referred to as the nothing but net balling, where the ball just goes straight through their head. Just that was just amazing. Number 3 from part 3, I couldn't figure out what I really wanted to pick out of part 3 because some of it didn't really stick with me, some of it did, some of it I thought was in part 4, like the nothing but net balling. But the one that I thought was the best would be the razor blade frisbee of death. Just chucks in the air and just slices someone's throat. Like, just the perfect amount of ridiculousness. My number 2 would probably be my number 1 if it wasn't for the fact that number 1 is iconic. But my number 2 is the gold ball from part 2, going through the guy's back, working his way up through his body, then exploding out of his mouth. It just makes me uncomfortable just even thinking about it. And like, it's the way his body writhes, like the physicality of the actor when he's doing it, all of it's just so brutal. Like, it makes my skin crawl, and it's done so well. And I love it. And then my number 1 is, of course, the first balling in the first movie, because that is just one of the best horror sequences in any horror movie ever. Like, I don't need to say anything else about it. I think we talked about it at nausea when we watched, when we did the first movie. So I can go back to that episode if you want to hear us talk about that forever, because it's so fucking cool. But that's it for me. Matt, what about you?
All right, so starting from 5 to 1. My number 5 is Phantasm 3, the nothing but netball. I wrote it down a bit differently, but the way you described it then, it's like, yeah, everyone knows what that is now.
Yep.
Number 4 is actually from Phantasm 4, and it's actually Mike's death at the end. And it's more everything that happens around that as well, where you've got, like, you know, the tall man takes the gold sphere out of his head, and he sort of like walks up to the space gate and just sort of like turns just before he goes through, and he has this interesting, like, the look on his face is like this sort of like almost sad look that it's like, you know, oh, the game's over now. And he walks.
He's been trying to end the game for like 4 movies, so.
But I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, he's got what he wanted, but now I think there's this sort of sadness of like, oh, but now what am I going to do? So I really like that because just the way the sequence is built
for sure.
up. Number 3 is Phantasm 2, the gold ball going through the tall man's minion, because like you said, it's just the sound design, the actor, like, you know, like the look in his eyes when it's working its way up his chest and he looks up, you can see actual pain. I don't know what they were doing to him. I don't know if they were drilling his kneecaps or something, but he was in actual pain. I am certain of it, because it's incredible acting, like, insane. Number 2, this is going to be controversial. It's the first balling from the first film. It's iconic. It's fantastic. Like, the concept of it is just insanely cool. You know, the idea that it's
sound of it flying around is
the
just
sound
so
design.
creepy.
Yeah, it's, you know, the little thump when it actually goes into the head as well.
Oof.
Amazing. Now, number 1 is, and this is a caveat. It's the priest in Phantasm 2, but it's the uncut version.
Oh, okay.
Because fucking 8 frames is bullshit. So the uncut version in Phantasm 2 of the priest being bald, the actor in that sequence just sells it so much that this is like, you know, the horror in his face, and the way that it's, you know, all the blood that just got like spews out, and like this massive like fountain of blood that comes out, and the screaming, and the just, yeah, it's the best one for me because of the actor selling it so good. Like, this is. I look at that and I think this is horrific. He is literally feeling his brain being that he's watching it happen, and you can see it all in his face.
I was very close to having that as my number one instead of the first movie, and the only reason I didn't was because I had to go out of my way to get that version. So I'm just going off like the ease of like, this is all. The rest of my list is just as is. To get that one, I had to go find a specific Blu-ray, and it was kind of a pain in the ass. So because the movie made me work to see it, you don't make my list.
I'm a little bit more polite.
I took it personally.
You took it personally.
Yeah. Joel, what about you?
Sure. Number 5 is just the ball hauling ass and plowing a giant hole into somebody's head. We've already.
I like that Nothing But Net made every list.
Yeah.
It's very striking when you consider
two lists. It's in the same place.
Yeah.
Number 4 is horse. And honestly, that's just more because Kelly and I just both went like, why do they have to do that?
Horse was nearly on my list. Like when it was just bawling scenes, horse was on my list.
Oh yeah, if it was only
changed.
Bawling scenes, horse would have been like my number 3.
Yeah. When it changed though, that's when I added Mike in.
3 was the gold ball scrambling some dude's insides. It was just that's one of the more disturbing ones that happened, just because of the sheer pain and agony that actor emotes during that whole sequence, and it's terrible to think about how that'd feel.
Yeah. He's a fantastic. The performance in there is incredible.
Yep. Number 2 is the first ball death. I think it's been sort of covered to death, but like it is such a stark starting point for this movie. And it's one of those things where, like, if you're watching the first one, you've never seen anything before, when it happens, you're like, oh shit, they're showing it close up, and you're watching this guy watch himself being drilled in the face. Like, how horrifying would that thought be?
Can I just ask, Joel, have you just got my original list? Because you are literally going through what my original list was.
Let's see if number 1 was on yours. The gas leak explosion in the house.
No.
Reggie's family?
Yes. Yes. And just, it sort of starts off the sequence of just ridiculous explosions. And so it is a death
I mean, to
scene,
be fair,
but
I didn't consider the explosion to be a death because I always forget that the family's in there.
Yep.
I just think, oh, it's a cool explosion.
Yeah.
It's a fair answer, but I totally blanked on it being Reggie's family too.
Yeah. I was thinking, well, who died in that one? Like a couple of dwarfs, maybe, but nobody of consequence.
Yeah.
Oh, Reggie's family.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
it is not memorable in that there aren't these individual deaths where they're just focusing on one person's face, but it's just I talked about the explosions ad nauseum so much that it had to be on my list.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's a
funny that we
very
all kind
big
of forgot there's main
explosion.
characters in there.
I mean, can you class them as main characters if you never see them?
I mean, they're definitely refrigerator characters. I always feel so bad making that reference. Like, I love Green Lantern. Just had to go and do that. All right, should we move on to lines?
Yeah.
All right. My lines. Now, this was trying to come up with a list of top 5 lines from the Phantasm franchise that aren't just all tall man quotes is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I ended up with
4 out
just
of
4
5.
tall. Yeah, I have 4 tall man quotes and one that wasn't.
Same. Yeah.
I'm sure we're not going to have the same lines. We might have a couple overlapping, but we'll see. So I'll start with my number 5, and it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I love that it's used twice. Same line used in 2 different movies, very much to mean the same thing. And it's a classic Reggie line of, "It gets a little hard out there on the road."
I bet it does,
That
Reggie.
He says it to Mike with his dick out. It's amazing. And then he says it later to Dawn as a way to try to get her to sleep with him, and she calls him out in a mirror like, nah, shush, no.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
It's just so good. But the rest of mine are all tall man quotes. So we'll start with number 4. 2 of them are from part 1 because, it's just that good. So number 4, it's like one of the first lines I think he has, if it's not the first line. And it's so like just breaks the tension of a scene by scaring the shit out of you. Like one of the very early jump scares. It works so well. And it's just the hand coming down on Jodie's shoulder, just like an iron, just boom. And then the funeral is about to begin, sir. Like, it's just so great. And it just, always catches me off guard, even having seen the movie now 20 times.
Yeah,
and it is his first line.
It is, okay.
He just has such a commanding voice in general. But that was very much a good exclamation point.
Oh, yeah. It's just such a great way to introduce that character as a speaking character or whatever. My number 3 is
you've
another...
got the music as well as he's walking around. And then it just comes to a dead stop. The music ends and you just have the funeral is about to begin, sir. And it's just
so
like the music stopping and the cut and everything like that. It makes it such an impact.
Oh yeah, like it's. We'll get to the movie rankings in a minute, but there's a reason why the first movie is so fucking great. My number 3 is another tall man quote, and it's I love the way he says "ice cream man." It's just so good. But that ice cream man, it's in his head. Like, it's such a good line.
Well, it's like it's when he's just like it's all in his head, and it's like holding on certain syllables, and it, with the sir thing from the previous line. Angus did that amazingly, just the holding on certain syllables, and it just adds some an extra level of creepiness to it.
And the way he says "ice cream man," he almost says it like an insult. But Reggie wears being an ice cream man like a badge of honor. Like, he loves being an ice cream man. But I just, you get so much story in that one little line of the tall man is like, how is this fucking ice cream slinger still a thorn in my side? I love it.
I was never more threatening than when I was at Whitey's Ice Cream as an employee.
That's very true. My number 2 will have to be, I mentioned last week that it would be in my top 5 list, so you can see I really love this line. It's when he's talking to Reggie and just I can't believe I'm still dealing with you. And you get that, you're an unwanted pawn in the game, but your tenacity's amused me, and I've enjoyed your despair. But my use for you is at an end. You're not even real. You're my bad dream. It's just... you ever go to the Reddit, Murdered by Words?
Yeah.
This is that. He just decimated Reggie to you are dust.
Yeah.
Please go away.
In literally a couple of sentences as well.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's very reminiscent to a line that he has with Mike in part 4 of the whole where do you think you're going? Your death does not belong to me. One of you might have that on your list. It's a very, very good line. But for me, it's just because I love Reggie so much. I wanted the interaction between him and Reggie versus him and Mike. Mm-hmm. It's the only reason why I picked that one over that. My number 1, though, and it is for me the line from Phantasm. It is the best thing to come out of it. It's something I quote way too often, and I love it. You played a good game, boy, but the game is finished. Now you die. Fucking amazing line.
Yeah.
And that's my top 5 lines. Matt? Have at it.
So, number 5. Hello again, and goodbye. Throws.
The girl just goes careening across the room.
Yeah. And just, not even trying to hide that it's a rag doll.
Yeah. It's so fucking good, that. It's just the way she turns and walks straight into him, grabbing her by the throat. It's hello again, and goodbye. And it's just no effort, and she goes flying across, bounces off the wall. It's brilliant. I fucking love that whole sequence. Number 4, it's a Reggie line from 2. It's actually one of the voiceover lines. I was very surprised that it ended up on the list, but I think it's a really cool line, and it kind of explains a little bit of what Phantasm is about. So it's just him going, small towns are like people. Some get old and die a natural death. Some are murdered. And I just think that's a really cool idea of, like, the tall man is going from, like, small town to small town, killing them. Killing the towns themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's
a solid line, yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Number 3 is, you play a good game, boy, but the game is finished. Now you die. Number 2, you think that when you die, you go to heaven. You come to us. And then number 1, and I was actually surprised that this ended up being number 1, because, it's from the 4th film. I think you all know where I'm going with this. You may not take your own life. It is my domain, exclusively.
Oh, yeah. That's
Just
strong.
so
good.
Fucking chilling and amazing. And, basically in that one line is saying to Mike, you have no control over yourself at all. I am in control. I love it.
Oof. Everything around that line too, like that whole sequence is so good. Like I said, that would have been my number 2 if it wasn't for the fact that it's with Mike and I wanted the stuff with Reggie. All right, Joel.
All right. Well, number 5 is a Reggie quote because, everybody needs a little Reggie. And it was...
Oh, he definitely calls it a little Reggie, doesn't he?
A little Reggie goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Ever try vanilla?
Oh, God.
Jesus.
Had to be that one.
Do you know what I'm glad about? I'm glad that all our non-tall man lines have all been different. We've had no overlap on those.
Although they've all been
nice.
Reggie, haven't they?
They all have been Reggie, yeah. But Reggie has the best lines, apart from the tall man.
Yeah, Mike is usually pretty straight-laced, so there isn't much opportunity for him to have a really striking line in that way.
Yeah, nobody's picking a Jody line either.
Fuck Jody. I said it. I mean it.
We didn't even mention... Well, you mentioned Jody like once in the last episode.
Yeah.
But,
Well, he just shows up...
Reggie's 4-Bell Ice Cream is not a podcast for Jody fans.
No, it is not.
all 5 of you.
There's only like 15 Phantasm fans, but that club over there can stay over there.
There's only 2 fans of Jody, and one of them's the actor who plays him. Sorry, Bill Vaughn.
No, that's okay. The other fan wasn't Reggie because they kept him far away from him for the entire series after the first one. The number 4 is Ice Cream Man. It's all in his head. Because it's a nice double wordplay in context of that. Because number 1, this whole series is about them sort of saying like what's real or what's not, and then the other half is just it's literal.
There's a ball in his head.
Yes, exactly. Number 3 is now this won't hurt a bit. Well, maybe just a little bit.
I love that line. That was nearly on my list as well. And again, it's another thing what I was talking about with the holding of the enunciations. Well, maybe just a little bit.
Right. And
apparently Angus fought against that line. He felt it was too comical for the tall man.
But I think that's why it works so well, because it's so subtle. Yep. Like it's a very subtle thing that's humor, and he has the smallest little smirk when he says it too. So it's one of those times where they add a tiny bit of personality to the character. Number 2 was you play Game Boy, but the game is finished. Now you die. And it's you guys already said it's such an iconic, striking thing for the first movie. It sort of sets the stage for basically what the rest of the series is going to be as well. You can't not put that in your top 5.
Is that the one that hit all of our lists?
I think so, yeah. That's the only line so far that's hit every single one of our lists.
My number 1 is, you think when you die you go to heaven, you come to us. And that is, again, just such a powerful statement, especially as he's talking to this priest who, has devoted his life to God, and then him being basically disillusioned, being like, nope, Everything I learned was a lie, and now I'm gonna die at your hands, and now I'm your property. And
then just before it as well, you've got him saying, "They have no need of your service" as well. Like, you know, it's that slow build up to shattering his world, basically.
Right, and I love that they loop it back into 5, and they recontextualize it in a way that has an entirely different meaning because it's with Reggie, and it's within context of him trying to make this devil's bargain with him, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love the callback, and like the fact that he's like, I've been telling you this whole time, you've already lost. When you die, you don't go to heaven. Like, you're coming to me. I've won. Why don't you listen to me? That's some good shit.
Tall man, I've come to bargain.
It's amazing.
That's a crossover I'd like to see.
My God, Doctor Strange versus the Tall Man.
That's a tough fight.
I'd watch it. All right, so we got to do the movie rankings, and I'm going to be totally honest. I think it's a tie for number 2 of every movie but part 1. So I'm going to do my list as quickly as I can, because I honestly, when I was trying to rank the bottom 4, I was like, I could do this in any order, and I can make an argument in my head of how it's correct. So with that in mind, like, it's really tough, and I'm just going off my gut of like which ones will I rewatch the most, and that's kind of how I ranked it. So my number 5 will be part 2. I think part 2 it's a little too shiny for me. I think the guts of the movie are amazing, and I really enjoy them. And just like every Phantasm movie, there's gonna be something I hate in it, and there's a ton of stuff that I love in it. I hate the telepathy stuff with Mike and his girlfriend. It drives me bananas. I think it's so cheesy. It just makes me want to rip my hair out.
Yeah, it's bad.
But the rest of the movie, like, I really enjoyed on the second rewatch. It might be my least favorite out of all of them, but again, like, that they're so close. There's really no point in saying I have a least favorite. So number 2, and after that, I go with number 4. I loved number 4. The only reason it's at the bottom of the list is because it's just so much reused footage or lost footage or found footage or whatever you want to call it, unused footage of part 1. And it's like there's just so much of part 1 and part 4. I'm like, all right, there's just not enough here to really say that it should be any higher on the list, although it's still fantastic. And then I go with number 5. 5 is just, if you listen to last week's episode, we really didn't have much to say negative about 5 beyond the final showdown, which was a little too just undercooked. And then I go with number 3 because I love 3's mix of comedy and horror, and it's just kind of a mess of a movie, and it's just so much fun. And then that's all tied for 2. And then, of course, number 1 is number 1, because number 1 is an iconic horror movie that I can watch again and again and again and again and never get tired of it. And it's just so fucking great. And that's my list.
That's fine.
I think it's a pretty good list. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like what you were talking about with the joint thing, my list is quite similar.
Yep.
But slightly different.
I think this is a series where, like, you can make an argument for any order. Except for 1 being last. Like, screw you if you think the 1's the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who thinks 1's the worst, like literally has no idea anything about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because the techniques that are used in that are incredible, and the fact that these people are not professionals when they're making it.
Right.
They were just very talented amateurs. I mean, shall I go now?
Yeah, go for it. Let's do it.
So I have a joint bottom 3 and a joint top 2, because I genuinely can't choose between my top 2, and my bottom 3 is very difficult to rank. So I went with number 5 is Phantasm 3. It's just because all the weird sort of comedic elements, the very, very, very obvious Home Alone stuff, it just feels, I don't know, it feels at odds with what we've seen so far, to the point where it doesn't, like Joel said, I think Joel put it perfectly, it's very of its time. It's very much of that post Home Alone kind of world of like, oh, let's get a kid in that's got like a trap set up around his house, but let's make him a fucking psychopath who kills them. Number 4 is Ravager. Number 5, just because, yeah, I think it would probably be a little bit higher if they'd had a bit more money and not sort of like dropped the ball at the very last second. No pun intended. With the sort of the climax, if they had a little bit more money to do that, really, like I was saying in the last episode, the shot of it zooming in on the tall man as he's going, boy, it's a really awesome concept, but just the lack of budget, it doesn't have the impact that I think it would have done had they had a few more, a bit more money to really spend some time on that. Number 3 is Phantasm 4, Oblivion, and it's just shot so well. Legitimately, it may be the best shot one of the lot, just because of the way that they shoot that desert. And I actually found out, we were saying in the podcast that tree is a real tree. It isn't. It's a prop tree, apparently. Because in the book they talk about how Michael Baldwin was helping them drag the tree across the desert into the set. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, apparently it's a fake tree or a prop tree or something like that.
I wonder what tree everyone's going out and taking photos of, saying they're at the Phantasm tree. Then
I don't know. One that looks suspiciously like it. Then of course my joint top 2 is the first one and the second one. I can't really choose between the two. 2 has got a real soft, I have a real soft spot for 2. It's the first one I saw. I love the soundtrack to it. I like, there's some of the sequences that are just fantastic. It's got, I love the sequence in the hardware store where they're going around and just getting all this stuff. Yeah. And then the first one, it's a classic. It is an absolute classic horror film. We talked ad nauseum about how amazing it is. And 2 being joint first is that's the uncut version, because the uncut version feels more like a Phantasm film as well, especially with that the full length balling sequence.
Again, it'd be a lot better if they didn't make you have to work to see it.
Well, that's not their fault. That's freaking the company that does the Blu-ray. That's their fault.
Bastards.
Yeah. They just release it and say, this is the uncut one.
Yeah, right? How hard would that be? Oh my God. All right, Joel.
All right. So, I would say number 5 for me was Phantasm 3. I think it's a lot of fun. I also think it's the least Phantasm out of all the movies. The comedic tone, and I love Reggie, but this very 90s style of it. Again, it's a fun movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just not a great Phantasm, in my mind. Number 4 is Phantasm Oblivion. I did like the movie. I think I expressed my issues in our episode. Too much reliance on the flashbacks. And I think that just the highs are very high, but the lows for me are some of the lowest parts of the series. 3 is Phantasm 2. I think that at least, I know stylistically it's a lot different, but when it comes to the beat-by-beat story, it is similar enough to Phantasm 1, where it's still entertaining. I think that's where the house explosion's at, right? So I gotta respect that in it. And I also think that Alchemy actually is a really captivating antagonist outside of the tall man. She's freaky in a way that is very striking and memorable too.
Sure.
Number 2 is Phantasm 1. And these are a tough 1 and 2 for me, because Phantasm 1 is going to be probably one of the most memorable movies to me I've ever watched, and it'll probably be the movie that I think about the most when I think about Phantasm, just because you have to start there. And it's just, there is nothing that I would go back and complain about for that. And I think the amateur nature of it really gives it a character that I haven't seen in many other movies that I've watched. So I have very little to say poorly about that movie. And Phantasm Ravager is my number one.
Wow.
I like as soon as you said that his number 2 was Phantasm, the first one. I actually looked at my microphone with a wide-eyed look. I was like, "What?"
All I was going was like, "Wait, where was 5? Is 5 go to my left? Is that going to be his number 1? No way."
You guys hyped it up as this like, oh, I can't wait to see how he feels about it. And the first time I walked away being like, I liked that, but I'm not sure how to, express that into words. And I think, we talked about my complaints. I don't think the future stuff works very well. I think it's a mixture of it looking poor even for its time, coupled with some of the comedy being kind of flat and out of place. But I love what they do with Reggie's character. And he's been this focal point throughout the entire series, even in movies that he hasn't been the main character. But having him struggle with this what's real and what's not, am I actually going crazy? This tall man's giving me a Faustian bargain, should I take it or not? I think that just sticks with me as a really great endpoint to his character. As somebody who's been fighting for so long to get the tall man, but then he actually has his release and, sort of letting go from this persistent misery he has, where he's been trying to find Mike. He finally finds Mike. And so even if he's in this hellscape future in his afterlife, it is still like the best case scenario for him. It's his ideal world where they're just 3 badasses trying to take down the big bad guy.
I mean, it's such a good send off.
Yeah, and I'm a
really
sucker
is.
for good good endings in that like it does something that I feel satisfied with at the end of it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I can't think of a better way they could have ended it, really. Because I think if you end it with them actually beating the tall man, it kind of undermines everything that came before, because he is so unkillable.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you also want the characters to have some sort of victory. So it manages to do both of them. Like, you have them kill the tall man, but not kill the tall man.
Right.
You have them win, but lose. It's really, really well done.
The only drawback was getting Jodie back and not getting Jodie Ball back. So I really like Jodie Ball.
I think I like Jodie Ball better than Jodie.
I sure did. If Jodie Ball was driving the car at the end,
I was just going to say, if he's got little robot arms that are out of the ball, and that eyeball from the eyeball ball from 3 is like, that's just poking over the windscreen so you can see.
that would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. But
We should have a buddy cop series with Jodie Ball and the eyeball.
Again, I'd watch it. Well, I'm sad to say it feels a little strange that we're done. I mean, this show, it came and went so fast. I mean, that's what happens when there's only 5 movies to cover. We learned that with Resident Evil. But man, what a fun series. Like, I'm so glad we did it, even though, like not as fewer people listen to this one. I think fewer people are bigger fans of Phantasm. But, I mean, selfishly, this was a fantastic ride. I'm really glad we did this one.
Me too.
Jinx.
And I think we made Joel a legitimate fan.
You did.
Yeah.
I've eyed the idea of picking up a copy of the first one at least. Yeah.
So is that fan with a PH? Or...
I mean, of course it is.
I don't understand that joke.
Yeah.
It's what Phantasm fans.
Oh, okay. That was terrible.
That's why I say good, because if we explained it, it got worse. Oh, man. But yeah, so I'm really glad we did this. But, next week, because I don't think we really have time to miss a week. We might miss a week. We might not. It just depends on my schedule for editing. But next week, we have to start a whole new show, because that's the way it works at Binge Buddies. And we haven't teased it at all. We haven't really talked about it at all, because, we hadn't decided. But now we have. And we have a show, and it's going to be called It's Always Time to Rock. Can you guess what the show is? Can you guys guess what the show is, even though you both know?
Always,
I mean, I couldn't guess it from there.
Always
I was
time
I'd forgotten. I was like, hang on a minute, are we doing something about Queen?
Is it Peacemaker?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's Peacemaker. Now, I was a little hesitant to do a show on Peacemaker. We actually talked about it when the show was airing because season 2 is still a long ways out. We don't know anything really about it. Peacemaker themselves did a podcast called Podly while it was coming out, and so it already did its episode to episode thing. So I was a little hesitant to do it, but at the same time, that was them talking about it. They're very attached to the show. They have a big PR team behind them. They have Warner Brothers, HBO, DC, everybody behind them, and we're a couple of a few nobodies with no money behind us. So let's see what our take is, and it'd be a lot of fun to dive through and do it. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm calling it "It's Always Time to Rock." That title might shift a little bit to be a little bit more in line with the actual quote from the show, but we're gonna do Peacemaker. We're gonna start next week or the week after, depending how my schedule works, with the Suicide Squad. We're gonna watch that whole movie to kind of get the intro to the Peacemaker, and then we're gonna do each episode of that from there on out. And I'm so excited to do this because so far in 2022, I have not seen something better on TV than Peacemaker. It has been the most enjoyable experience I've had watching a comic book thing, possibly ever. It's that high up in my list for comic book television and storytelling and John Cena and James Gunn, and I loved this show with every fiber of my being, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
And you also...
Matt, I know you watched it, right?
Yeah. Did you just call me a nobody though?
I called myself a nobody too, so don't feel too bad about it.
It's okay. This show's entirely about testing my limits, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yours, and then by proxy of you, your
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, I loved it when I watched the series because it's comic book, yes, but it's not like your Marvel comic book stuff.
Right.
This is
right.
It's subvertive comic book stuff. It's not your standard cookie cutter shit.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about this offline, but I have a comic book movie hangover ever since Avengers Endgame, and there's been very few scant things that have compelled me to go back into the MCU. I watched Batman vs Superman. I thought it was flawed but entertaining, but yeah, don't talk back to me, Brian.
I'm holding back. Don't worry. You didn't say it was terrible, so we're good.
There's a lot of really.
I'm
neat
just wondering
stuff in that movie.
if anyone's going to point out the fact they said I haven't been back into the MCU, but I did watch Batman vs Superman. Do you think that that's in the MCU, Joel?
I mean, I'm fucking with you. Of course I know it's not.
I was fucking with you too. It was just the way the way it was
your
worded.
pause worked way too well, Joel. I'm like, oh no. But I'm currently holding the Batmobile from BVS. I'm currently holding a replica of it.
I'm gonna go ahead and say
You're
it.
hugging it.
Ben Affleck is probably one of the better Batmans.
He absolutely is. But
I mean, I think he's probably the best screen Batman. Live action. Although,
Robert Pattinson, he might have won me over.
I know. I was just thinking.
he's
Then
good.
actually, Robert Pattinson is really fucking good.
He's really... But either way, so we're going to start with the Suicide Squad. So we don't have to worry about Batman at all. And Joel, I honestly think, as somebody who's burnt out with comic book stuff, the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker was made for people in your shoes.
Good stuff.
It does comic book stuff in a different way, while still being very comic booky, very different. So
Very
I think...
James
Have you seen
Gunn.
the Suicide Squad yet?
I have not.
So you're watching it for this show. I'm excited to see what you think about it. I legitimately think you will enjoy it.
Are there?
Just
You
make
do
sure
not
you
need to
watch. Make sure you watch the Suicide
I was just
Squad.
about to
Where I
ask.
was going, yeah, go ahead and skip Suicide Squad. You don't need to watch it, and just go straight to the Suicide Squad.
When you're selecting it to watch it, it says starring Will Smith. You're on the wrong one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right now, starring Will Smith probably isn't a good place to be.
Yeah, not a great idea. So I guess that's it then. And
We don't do plugs at the end of synopsises, right?
we don't. No, we just let him go. I was trying to figure out a good Phantasm quote to end on, and I can't really think of one. Something along the lines of "We played a good game."
I think
Game's
I think
finished.
hello and goodbye might be the.
I was gonna say that one.
There it is.
I was literally gonna go. Well, we could just go with hello again and goodbye.